Alright, today's topic is more, I guess, on the beginner side of things compared to a lot of other topics. How to get into a chest-to-wall handstand. So we have three methods. The first one I think is the best for conditioning and for beginners and for overall control. The second two methods are much more energy efficient, but they take a lot more spatial awareness. So I wouldn't do them until you have developed a certain amount of coordination and really know your space. So the first one is my preference for beginners because it really teaches you lockout of the arm. It builds strength, it builds conditioning, builds control. So we have basically push-up position, and we're walking up the wall. As we walk the hands in, we walk the feet up. And my preference is actually to pause for a couple seconds on each hand. So rather than just scuttling up, 1 to 2 seconds, 1 to 2 seconds, and that way you build a much stronger base of support. It's actually physically much more difficult than the handstand itself, which means if you can do a couple rounds of this, you're more than physically prepared for all of the handstand work that you need, except for endurance. And you go slow enough that you have to control everything, which is what I like, so that there's little chance of a risk of falling as long as you go slow enough. So push-up position, walking the feet up, flex the feet, making sure that the shoulders don't go towards the wall. So the whole point with this movement is that you never want to lean the weight against the wall like this. If you do, it's useless. You're not teaching yourself to eventually stand on your own. So, push-up position, walking the feet up the wall, one arm, second arm, elbow is straight, very important. If I bend, it's much heavier. I keep walking, I go as high as I can. If it's here, maybe I'll do like a pike hips, so the feet can be very light, but I want to keep walking until I get into my chest-to-wall position. In this case, I want to have upper chest, hips and feet touching the wall. Here I point the toes as well, so I'm not pushing off of them. And then I come back down, I flex the feet, slowly, reverse, control, everything is controlled. Okay, and next two options, as I mentioned, they use a bit of momentum, they take much less energy to get up to the handstand, they take much less time, but you have to have more control. So I say you should have good awareness, of your cartwheel. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but you don't want to go too fast, not landing too heavy, and again, being aware of the space around you, because if you do these wrong, you could fall, or you could damage your walls, or you could potentially break some toes, so we don't want that. The second, other than just cartwheel, you should control your cartwheel so that you can go slow enough to pause in a handstand. It doesn't mean it has to be a handstand balance, but you know enough about cartwheels to be able to stop and not go all the way through. So that's a really important prerequisite. If you can't do those, I would suggest putting some practice in on your cartwheels before you get too heavily involved into these two other handstand methods. So 2 ways to enter the wall. Number 1 is from the side, and it's going to be the same cartwheel, right? You do the cartwheel not going all the way over, but you stop in the center, and this one you just stop and you find the wall with your feet. It's going to look like this. And then I can walk, and then much easier to get up into my chest-to-wall handstand. Now, next version is a bit more complicated because it involves you go straight towards the wall. So again, you want to be able to do a cartwheel that looks something like that. There's a bit of an extra step. It's easier because you can find the wall, but the most important thing is you don't put a lot of power into this cartwheel. If you cartwheel too fast and it's a concrete wall, it's a brick wall, you will feel it. You're probably going to break a couple toes. So making sure that you know how to be gentle in your cartwheel, and basically it looks like this. One more thing is to understand your space. So you have to know where to put your hands and where your feet are going to be. So everyone takes a bit of a different space in their cartwheel depending on their proportions and their height. So I have to be about this far. If I'm too far away, it won't work well. If I'm too close, I have to also modify my cartwheel in a way that's not going to help. So proper distance, like this, like that. So I'll show you a couple more times. My foot stays flexed. Basically, I catch the wall with my toes, but very gently because I'm not putting a lot of power into this cartwheel. Once that foot touches the wall, I turn. So in this case, I turn my right hand. No, I turn my left hand. So I go here, I turn my left hand in. So that's the motion. So I cartwheel left leg in front, which means my hands go left, right. You can reverse that if you need to. But 1, 2, catch here, and then here's your position. Right, and reverse it, come down. So hopefully that makes sense. 3 ways to get into your wall handstand. All of them are going to challenge you in different ways. Cartwheel is super important. So if you're working handstands and you don't have a good cartwheel yet, it's really important for not only for handstands, but for falling, for basic spatial awareness. So make sure you can do that. Otherwise, hope you found it useful. Let me know what you think about different entries into your chest-to-wall handstands. Whatever, like, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know what else you want to see.